Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that has tricks and treats for you all year long. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, a professional medium and a teller of ghost stories. Now, the week this episode goes live marks the halfway point to Halloween. If you listen to this podcast every week, you are probably a lot like me and just love Halloween. So I thought, let's take a moment. Imagine a cozy autumn day. The air is crisp and clear. The leaves on the trees are a riot of color above you and at your feet. And there's this feeling of excitement, mystery, and a little bit of a chill of the unexpected. Or it's a stormy, dark autumn night and you're cozied up with your favorite book of ghost stories as you sit by the fire with a warm drink. And perhaps a restless wind taps a tree branch against the window next to you. Or is it something else? In the spirit of halfway to Halloween, I'm going to share with you chilling ghost stories that happen on Halloween night. Sort of a spooky story podcast special to relive the joy of Halloween. Let's get spooky. The Halloween screams start now. One year, my family went shopping for Halloween decorations. We went to this store called Spirit Halloween, and my mom said her friends recommended it. When we went inside, there was a lot of cool, realistic Halloween scares. There was one that I thought was pretty cool. It was a bloody clown, and when you stepped on the trigger, it raised a knife and let out a very soft, yet ominous shh. I wanted my mom to get it, but unfortunately, she thought it was too expensive. We ended up buying a few other spooky things and went on with the rest of the day's errands. But that animatronic clown that I had thought was pretty cool soon turned out to be pretty spooky. For some reason, I began to have nightmares about it. And then I saw a few of my neighbors decorating their house with that clown, and I felt like it was taunting me. I walked over to my friend's house one day and discovered they had bought the clown and had it standing right there by their front door, as if it was waiting for me. I stared at it for a moment, then I turned around and I went straight home. Then on Halloween night, when I was doing my homework I desperately had to catch up with, I heard a freaky shh in my bedroom. I recognized it obviously from the clown. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I poked my head out my doorway, and there was no one in the hall messing with me. I began to freak out, but I had to finish my math homework. As I finished my work, Every once in a while, I would hear shh. Finally finished, I put my book away and convinced myself I was imagining it. But later that night, while I was in bed, I heard shh. The sound was coming from my closet. I just had to tell my mom, and I ran to her room. I told her everything that I heard, and she didn't believe me. All I can do now is convince myself I had been imagining it. In 2024, on October 31st, I witnessed a very disturbing image that still haunts me even to this day. I was 9 years old that Halloween, and I spent the entire time at home with my whole family watching movies and eating chocolate. As a young child, I had a passion for drawing, so there was always a new sketchbook being filled up with my artwork. That night, I was getting bored from the movie, and I decided to draw rather than to continue to watch the film. I remembered my sketchbook was on my bed in my room, so I thought I'd draw and then go to sleep. I went to my room and opened my bedroom door. The room was dark, but my bedroom window curtains were open. I looked to my right to turn on the lights, which happened to face the window. Outside of my window, looking in, was the head of a pig, but not an ordinary pig. The flesh seemed to be beaten badly, its snout ripped apart, its left eye was gorged out, and its ears ripped and hanging. The detail that really stood out was its one glowing red eye. I couldn't move as I stood there for a few moments, staring, as if paralyzed. I wanted to flee in terror, but it's moments like these that fear keeps us rooted in place. Eventually, the ghastly image faded and disappeared. Years later, I tried to search for more cases relating to the supernatural involving a disembodied pig head. I never really found any sources relating to my experience until I heard the case of the Amityville haunting. Long story short, a young boy who experienced the strange phenomenon at the Amityville house also witnessed a pig outside his window. What does this mean? After all my research and wanting to understand, I finally came to the unsatisfying conclusion that some things are just left unexplained. To this day, paranormal activity has still been active in my home, and myself and the rest of my family have become accustomed to the paranormal. About a year ago, I happened to run into the family who lived on our property before my parents purchased this house. As we talked about the experience I have encountered over the years, the father of the family did not seem too surprised. As I explained the horrible pig apparition, he also shared his experience of witnessing the same pig outside the window. I was 9 years old when I saw this thing, so part of me wanted to believe it must have been my imagination. But the fact that the old owner of the property saw it too is just too much of a coincidence for me to accept that this was simple imagination. This story was submitted by dear friend of the podcast, Caitlin. If you would like to submit a story of your own, you can email me at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Thank you, Caitlin, for your story. One Halloween night, a local paranormal society hosted a ghost hunt in a historical home. My dad thought it would be interesting for us to go, as I've always been sensitive. The night was clear, cold, and calm. The house was a mansion that was built by a wealthy family before the Revolutionary War. There had been a skirmish between the British Army and the local militia on the front yard. Although the house is owned by a historical society, it still sits unoccupied and somewhat derelict in the back of a large field. Dad and I would often watch the show Ghost Hunters, so we kind of understood the equipment and knew what to expect. In the parlor of the home, the Paranormal Society allowed us to pick what type of equipment we wanted to use. A lady working with the society, who said she was a medium, handed me a pair of brass dowsing rods. I had never seen them before, and I was surprised by the strange humming sensation they made in my hands, like an electric current. The medium explained how to use the rods to ask yes and no questions. The rods moved independently, supposedly guided by an unseen spirit. Above the fireplace at the far end of the room stood a painting of a lovely woman in a pink dress. She looked friendly, which is not something that often comes across in old portraits. The team explained how this was a portrait of Abigail, one of the previous owners. She was one of the most active spirits in the home. Through the dowsing rods, I almost immediately made contact with Abigail. I sensed that she was kind and fun. I felt as though I had made a friend. The paranormal team was surprised at the responses that I received and the fact that Abigail did her best to manipulate the equipment when I asked her to. At the end of the evening, my dad jokingly said, "Well, Abigail, you must be getting bored around here. Why don't you come and visit us sometime?" While I enjoyed the experience, I didn't know what to make of my interactions with the rods. I hadn't seen anything, and it all could have been the power of suggestion. Or so I thought. I tucked myself into bed that night and fell asleep. A desk and a chair sat at the foot of my bed. Weeks before, someone had given me a mylar balloon which I had tied to the desk chair. It now lied on the floor almost completely deflated. I had meant to throw it out. Around 3 a.m, a strange rustling sound woke me up. I sat up in bed and stared in complete shock. The balloon was moving. In the dim light, I saw the string being pulled by an unseen hand, left, right, up, down. The string rapidly jerked the sad-looking balloon as far as it could go. I rubbed my eyes and pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I remembered what Dad had said to Abigail about coming for a visit. I got up and untied the balloon from the chair, saying, "That's enough, Abigail." I tossed the balloon into the hall bathroom, shut the door, and went back to bed. Abigail is still a frequent visitor in my parents' home, and I consider her still a good friend. I've seen her several times, as have my parents and several guests. The most notable sighting happened the following year. My great-grandfather had come to stay for us for a while after his house had burned down. He wasn't very kind to me, and I hated being left home alone with him. One day, after a particularly bad incident, I left him in front of the television in the family room while I went to make dinner. Suddenly, I heard him shouting, "Caitlin! Caitlin! Come here! There's a woman in here!" I poked my head into the room to see what the matter was. Sure enough, Abigail had materialized next to the television. She stood translucent and motionless. She was glaring at him with an intense dislike. Frightened, my grandfather exclaimed, "That woman! She's glaring at me!" I replied, "She sure is," and I laughed as I went back into the kitchen. My great-grandfather went to stay with other relatives not long after. At the age of 12, I had a best friend named Tanya. During the time I knew Tanya, we went through many a strange experience. But here's one I will say I remember the most. Tanya and her family ended up moving in with her mom's boyfriend into his 3-story house in the heart of our small town. Her boyfriend, Roger, lived by himself, so that made room for Tanya, her little sister, and her mom. When Tanya first moved into the house, she would make remarks to me all the time like, something is weird about this house. I can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Tanya's mom and her boyfriend worked the night shift at a local factory, so that left Tanya to babysit her younger sister. During the day, Tanya and I would either talk for hours on the phone or I would be there. After about a month of living there, Tanya said, "When I watch my sister during the day and I let her go outside, I can hear things in the attic. It's like someone is walking around or moving something, and when I go up there, no one's there and nothing has been moved." Tanya was not one to lie, so from then on we began to observe the house. She was right. You could hear conversations of a woman and a man in the attic. It was a very intense conversation, almost an argument. You could never understand the words, but you could feel the tension in the air. Unafraid or thinking we were invincible, we would still go up there and look around, even making suggestions to whatever it was to come out and show itself. One night, Tanya and I had been roller skating in the basement and decided to come up to get something to eat. I was still downstairs taking off my skates, and Tanya was sitting at the top of the stairs. Tanya came down to the bottom of the stairs and said to me, "Something's in the attic. Come with me." Someone or something had opened the attic door and turned on the light while Tanya was at the top of the stairs. The upper stairs were around the corner from the other, so you could tell if the door was being opened. When we got to the top of the stairs, there was nothing there, and the light had been turned off. That night I slept over. Tanya and I laid awake while we listened to the sounds of furniture and arguing in the attic. Almost a week later, Tanya's little sister woke up in the middle of the night screaming about a nightmare she just had. She told us she had dreamed she had woke up in the middle of the night to find a man with red hair and black eyes standing in her doorway. He told her that his name was Gabe and he was going to take all her toys away and harm her mother. We had never mentioned our concerns about the house, the attic, the basement, or the man, because we knew that if we did, we'd be in deep trouble with Tanya's mom. There were many events that happened in that house that would make cold chills run up and down your spine, but the one that sticks out in my mind was, fittingly, on Halloween. Tanya and I got dressed up in our costumes and prepared the house with candles while her parents took her little sister out trick-or-treating. My sister had come over so we could go to the local haunted house. My sister was in the bathroom putting on makeup, and Tanya and I decided to walk to the nearest houses to get some candy. Right before we left, we made it a point to go upstairs to the attic to tease the unknown once again. I was in a boastful mood, Halloween being my favorite holiday and all, so my words were along the lines of, "All right, it's Halloween. It's your time to show yourself. We're not afraid of you." Laughing and scared, we ran downstairs and left to go trick-or-treating. Tanya and I were walking back to the house when my older sister came running out of the house, crying hysterically. We ran up to her and asked her what was wrong. Between sobbing and shaking, she managed to get out, "Where have you been? Someone or something is in that house." We asked her what happened, and she said when she was in the bathroom, the attic door opened and the light turned on. Whoever it was walked all the way around the house. They stopped and started banging on her bathroom door. Then they went back into the attic and turned off the light and slammed the door. We left the house that night and Tanya came home with me. A few months later, Tanya and her family moved, and now there's another family living in the house. I wonder if they ever met the ghosts. Hello, my dear spooky friend. Do you have a paranormal experience you would like to share? Submit your ghost stories to be read on this podcast. I love sharing true ghost stories, and yours could be among them. Email me your story at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Let's be spooky together. And with that, dear friend, we have reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed these spooky Halloween ghost stories that I shared with you as we celebrate halfway to Halloween. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to, in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
Welcome to Brew Crime, a true crime and beer podcast.
This is a podcast where we pick a theme, cover a few cases, and pair them with craft beer.
Join me, Mike,
And me, JT.
as we explore the world of crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. You can find us on social media at Brewcrime or our website, brewcrime.com. And you can find us on any podcast app at Brewcrime Podcast.
Join us as we discuss the horrible crimes that surround us and maybe, definitely tip a bottle or two back as you do it. Drink with us the second and last Tuesday of every month.
If you enjoy stories of the paranormal and the unexplained, join me for They're Not Shadows. As I got out of the car, lightning lit up the sky. The trees making a jagged display through the rain. they're not shadows. It's a spooky good time.
Hello? Are you okay?